Hey everyone, Tactics here with my 8th and final Keystone Legend guide, where this time we're going to be going over my Route 4 Darkflame Cleft, including some useful skips to avoid dangerous mobs, as well as some tips to help you go through the minecart area super fast. I have similar videos just like this one out for every other dungeon in the Season 2 pool so far if you're interested. Plus, I'm going to be going over more advanced tips and routing stuff in a future series aimed at players pushing for the 0.1% title. So if that sounds like something that you want to see, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Otherwise, let's get into the first pull of the dungeon here, which is definitely one of the more dangerous ones in the pool this season. Claims a lot of lives, and a lot of it is positioning. So let's get into it. We're pulling all these laborers here, and we're also going to be pulling this overseer into the next pack here. Now, I did make a mistake right off the top here. This pull is infinitely easier with a Prot Warrior Vengeance Demon Hunter because they have the ability to like AoE interrupt mobs, namely these two Wick Lighters here, to group things much easier. As you saw there, our Paladin did cut ahead, and so I used my AoE taunt earlier there to make sure I had aggro and our Paladin didn't instantly die. So it's going to make the grouping of these pack a little bit more annoying. But basically, the goal is to kind of delay such that you trigger the Wild Wallop before the pack here. And that way you don't have it so that as soon as you've grouped the pack, that this mob just immediately knocks everything everywhere. That's what you want to avoid. So instead, we're going to group up the casters, ideally right on top of the lowly mole herd, who is going to be, of course, spamming his throw rock ability. We're going to have a little bit of a hard time again because I didn't have that AoE interrupt on pull, but if you don't have one, you just need to make sure you have a couple kicks assigned to these Wick Lighters to actually get them in. We're popping lust and damage here, and you're going to see people coming in here on top of this mole herd because the throw rock ability actually has both a minimum and a maximum range. So you either have to be within 5 yards of the mob or past 30 yards from the mob, and in either of those situations, you cannot be targeted by throw rocks. You can actually make this mob essentially do nothing but an interrupt if you play it correctly. Now you get to the actual first slam of the Overseer, and there's a couple things you can do here. So one, knockups you can do. There's the Mage Frost Nova, like roots and things like that. Basically, if you root the mobs just as the knock is going off, you knock them up after the knock has gone off, you can prevent them from moving entirely. We don't have a ton of that in our group, like I said, so I'm going to try and position this mini boss guy such that he knocks stuff towards this direction and away from the packs as best I can. And I think we're going to miss our ROP here. Yeah, we ROP in the wrong direction here because the ROP basically should be trying to avoid these guys from getting knocked. But again, ROP works here. Any knock up, if you do it immediately after Wild Wallop, Frost Nova, all that stuff is a really, really good tech to help prevent these mobs from actually moving from that knockback. So that's a big thing to keep in mind. If you have any tools like roots, like knockbacks, make sure you are using them on this ability. It makes your life so much easier. Things like Ursul's and Binding Shot, also super nice for that ability because they'll just keep everything grouped up. Hugging the right side here to try and avoid having a second Overseer in this pull. We're going to go group everything up. Be careful of the falling laborers here. And again, this is a rinse and repeat here. Every time you pull an Overseer, it's the same stuff, right? You want to be trying to group the stuff up, pull it towards the wall through the Overseer if possible. That kind of requires some well-timed kicks. You see, we're going to mess up here. We don't have a lot of tools to actually stop the mobs from moving outside of Frost Nova and ROP, which I mentioned. And this does end up pulling this other pack. Now, we were going to pull this pack anyways. We're just forced to do it now a little bit early. So this is probably a common occurrence in a lot of your groups. Oh no, something butt pulled. The way you handle this is, okay, there's now multiple casters, a rock throw over here. Our entire group is going to run an LOS on this pillar to force everything to group up on top of us, and it's immediately solved. Everything is here, everything is stacked. You don't have casters spread all over the place, so these pillars are your friend. Make sure you use them, as they can really, really help you turn a catastrophic mistake into something that is not too bad. You also did see the pack moles coming in here. This is, again, something that we wanted to add into this pack. You just want to make sure they don't come with the rest of the patrols up here. They're actually completely separated, and we do want them because they're basically just kind of free count into this pack. So again, everything else is going here. We're going to kill this Overseer, luckily, before that happens. But again, it's kind of positioned so that we have the ROP for safety. We have the pillar here for safety. And so those things, along with Frost Nova, along with any other things you have in your comp, is going to make that not too bad, hopefully. And we're just going to cleave down the rest of the pack here. So this ended up being a time gain for us. Pulled stuff a little bit faster than we needed. And now we're going to get past here. And to skip this guy, basically you have both sides clear here. So you can go on the left or right, depending on where this overseer is patrolling. If he's over here already, then you just go around the other side. And you just need any threat reduction CC on the one mole herd, because again, these mobs are not tied together. So we're just going to shroud because we have a rogue, but Mind Soothe works, Imprison, Sleepwalk, anything like that will be just fine to get by. Just run right by, and we're going straight into the first boss here. Pretty straightforward. Oh, be careful of this instant mine or mine cart that comes across. Don't get murdered by it, like I got hit by it. And basically, there's nothing crazy about this boss fight now. They've changed it so you can't LOS the charge, I believe. So you do have to now actually charge the boss through things. So be careful. Make sure you're trying to control the laborers. One thing is that you can sometimes see a little bit early which track the minecart is going to appear on. And you're going to see me look here in a second and kind of have an angle so that I can see. And I'm going to look right first, and it's not going to be there. So the minecart's coming. You can look now and I kind of look around. Don't see it. And then I see it there late, of course. But you can basically see it driving down the tracks towards the path. If you look early, so that can let you move just a few seconds early, nothing crazy. Other than that, this is just another control boss fight, right? You want to try and control these laborers, get them one shot by things, use them as funnel, but don't be just AoEing them down and losing boss damage or losing cart damage just for the sake of doing it, right? Like we're going to hit them with some with a charge, going to have some in the circles. You see them there, boom, and that kind of thing. And that's going to also have a Windwalker in the circle. Why not? Classic Jared. And then we're just gonna that's the whole boss fight, right? That is pretty much it. It's about control here. Again, just like at the beginning of this dungeon, things like Ursals, things like Binding Shot, things like Roots are really, really, really useful at actually locking those mobs down and keeping them off your group and preventing the bleed stacks from stacking up. So kind of this whole first part of the dungeon it's very good if you have that available in your comp. Running down here, we're going to pull a lot of stuff here because, you know, as you saw, we skipped quite a bit at the beginning. And so we're going to deal with these easier mobs, in my opinion. A couple things here. One, bonk. Don't use abilities like Demolish that lock you into place when mobs are casting bonk. Turns out that's bad. Outside of that, these are always seem to be like towards the direction of the tank, like in front of the mob towards the tank. So be aware of that. You want one kick to each Blazing Fiend to try and prevent this stuff, this debuff from going off. And then for the actual candle, I believe this ability was LOSable. I don't know if they've changed it, but at least with one, it's not really a big deal. You don't really need to LOS at this key level, but potentially as you start going into higher key levels, that may be an ability you want to make sure you're avoiding. Then we're pulling the rest of the room here. I make a bit of a mistake here, I think. So no, there's no casters in this pack here. So I definitely should have pulled this first down to these mobs down here instead of pulling these mobs first. I was like, oh, these mobs are right here. They're in the corner. I'll grab them, and this is towards where we need to go. No, there's now 3 casters here. The grouping of this pack is now insanely annoying. So just group it in the opposite order that we did. Pull this stuff into this pack in the corner. And again, it's not super hard to deal with. You have like 1 CC or 1 interrupt, sorry, for each fiend, and the rest of your interrupts can go into the wick lighter. And that's pretty much it. Just a bunch of bonks. And there's a couple more candle guys going out. And so potential defensive would be if they're AoEing with the wick lighter getting free kicks off. But otherwise, this pull again is not really too dangerous. Then we're getting into Blazikon's room, where again, it really does pay to have either a Vengeance Demon Hunter or a Prot Warrior to help get the kicks on these guys because they have an AoE interrupt at their disposal. So we're grabbing everything together. If things start casting early, we'll get like an individual kick. And then we're going to start like AoE CCing the pack for a little bit here to try and get more of them to cast. And then I'm going to use the AoE interrupt earlier as well. And now basically we have a couple going off, but it's not a huge deal at this key level. And if we had done a better AoE CC chain, we definitely could have gotten away with literally 0 casts just by forcing them all to cast together and then using the AoE interrupt. Blazikon is a boss I covered in my hardest boss video. Basically, this is a boss that always has the exact same timing, so you always want to do the exact same things every phase. First off, defensive for Dousing Breath is the biggest individual hit of the fight. Immediately following this, 3 random players get targeted by barrage. Notice our group composition is very heavy melee. Now, if you have range, this always prioritizes range. So our mage knows he's always getting picked. I believe this cast surprises one of our melee, and he's like, oh, I got picked like super late. And so he doesn't end up hitting any candles. But for this one, basically, you want to hit as many candles as possible, because you are then going to get a dot for the amount of candles that you didn't light. So because we had one person not doing the mechanic here, and I think we missed a candle over there as well, we only actually end up lighting 3 candles. So this becomes a pretty scary dot in the grand scheme of things. So be careful, light as many as you can. And if you don't have 3 ranged players in your group, melee needs to be prepared to run out and light candles when that happens. Then that brings us to the gust ability here, where you want to hit as few candles as possible while still hitting at least 1, because you need it to clear space. But then keep in mind, you're also going to get a dot later on in the fight for the number of candles you clear. So you can see here, we kind of stack them on 1 candle and have other people miss. These also deal a significant amount of damage, so melee do kind of need to back up away from the boss again here a little bit, unfortunately melee, and just sidestep their candle or their tornado. But we basically just hit 1, so we're gonna have 1 safe space here, which, you know, makes the room look scary. However, you do have space in melee, and this is going to mean that the next set of frontal cones that go out is only going to give us 1 stack of dot, and then that's going to go immediately into the dousing breath again. So this is where you defensive this dot, which then leads into the dousing breath, and that's the biggest value defense of the fight. And then it just repeats. It's just the exact same over and over and over again. So you start by lighting as many candles as possible, hitting as few candles as possible with the tornadoes while still hitting 1, and then just defensiving when you get that second dot of the phase for the overlap with the dousing breath. That's this boss fight. Let's move forward here. Trash pull after this boss fight. Be careful. You're going to see it happen in this pull, actually. If you hit the wandering candle before the RP happens, you actually get it with the pack, and it's not worth any count. So don't do that. Walk up, let the RP trigger to actually kill this wandering candle, so you don't have to fight it. Tip there. And then I want to talk about the skip actually coming up. So I have a clear clip of it here going into this room. But basically, we're going to skip the mini boss pack in front of the Candle King. So we're going to come to the right side, and there's a few ways to do this skip. So the easiest way is either a Warlock gate, which we don't have in our comp, where you can gate like up from here to like up here. That's the easiest way. Second easiest way is Mind Soothe, as you're seeing us do now. Basically, the mini bosses have true sight, but if you come up here and jump down onto the stairs and then climb up, these guys with a Mind Soothe will not detect you. The other way to do this, of course, is with some threat reduction CCs. So you can do these 2 labors specifically are the ones that need them. So you have things like Imprison or Sleepwalk. You can use it on these 2 laborers and then do the same thing as if you had Mind Soothe. The other thing you can do is you can do 2 of any kind of CC and a Ring of Peace. So, you know, like Paralysis, Freezing Trap, and then you Ring of Peace these 2 mobs towards the mini bosses. Same thing, right? So you can do that as well. You can also do things like have people leap up here. You can have people rescue up here, life grip. The priest obviously doesn't need to do anything. He can just fade by as well. So that's another thing. So lots of different ways to actually do this skip. You can get up, you want to jump down. It's also a little easier if you have a slight speed boost, not a super speed boost, because you don't want to jump into the pack. But I'll rewind again just so you can see it. And you just kind of walk up here, have these mobs CC'd or whatever, Mind Soothe, and you just jump from the rock up like that. Boom. And then you're into the boss. So a neat little skip here to get past this pretty dangerous pack as well. It's pretty a long pack that you kind of want to commit cooldowns to and stuff like that, to let you just line up your cooldowns with the boss fight, which is a pretty dangerous boss fight. Let's go into that back in my other clip here. Boss fight, surely. There we go. And then, so let's get into this guy here, which is one of the more dangerous boss fights of the season. It's one of those like really heavy raw damage encounters, which means it favors things like staggering cooldowns defensively and in terms of healing, such that you have enough to sustain yourself throughout this entire fight. Now, the other thing too, where the main damage comes from is these eerie molds. So you want to make sure that you are destroying all of them every single phase, I guess, of this boss fight, just to reduce the amount of group damage coming in. And these are baited on players, so you can actually position yourself close together when the spawn is coming out to force them to all be relatively close and have like smaller gaps between them, making it easier to actually cleave them all down. And you can use things like the wall on the edge of the room as well to help kind of cluster them again, just less potential space for them to spawn. These don't spawn directly on players, they spawn nearby. Pickaxe stuff. Some things to note on the pickaxe. Obviously, it's going to hit anyone in the path, so don't be in the path of the pickaxe. This also does not pierce, so don't try and line it up so that you can hit 2 things with the pickaxe. It only ever hits 1. And the benefit of the pickaxe too is that it doesn't leave a puddle when you use it. So you want to try and hit the ones that are kind of further away. These are really clustered here, and that's going to drop some good puddles. This one's kind of far out, so I'm going to hit this one with the pickaxe. We're going to spawn the puddles from these ones, make our life a little bit easier here. Of course, Paranoid Mind. This does need like 2 kicks in terms of a rotation on it, 2 melee kicks. So make sure you don't have everyone commit to 1 cast and then you have nothing for the next cast. Just beware. And then we have the actual throw Dark Flame here where, you know, melee's getting uptime. We're going to cleave. Boom, just steps out at the last second to get all the stuff down. And the big thing here is that if you have a personal or defensive button to use, it's probably best to use it on those throw Dark Flame casts, because that's the only like quote unquote burst or additional damage players are going to be getting throughout this fight. It also applies nasty healing absorb to you. So if you have some form of self-sustained button that you can press as like a DPS player or something after that goes off to clear that healing absorb, it's definitely very, very useful. Other than that, you're just going to see us kind of like spawn these guys and then rotate again kind of around the room as these puddles fill up. You actually have a ton of room here because the puddles disappear relatively quickly. So don't be too scared to move somewhat aggressively. The other thing too, be careful of these things that kind of disappear in the puddles of wax. You can kind of see the orb above it that shows there is one in there. You can see our mage, I think, is stepping in there just to make sure he cleaves it as well. So make sure you're on the lookout for those. And then again, you kind of want to try and group up when these eerie molds are casting up. You see we're able to get in, but our mage, who was far away trying to get that far one, didn't quite get in time. That spawns one that's a little bit far away. So again, ideally we would have been able to maybe hit this with a pickaxe, but it's also kind of in a weird spot. So, you know, it's okay. I think one of these two probably would have been the better pickaxes, and we could have cleaved this one down, but this one's also kind of hard to hit, right? So it's much safer to hit it with the circle. So it's just kind of that on the fly adjustments you need to make sure that you are cleaving down all this stuff. And we're just bursting the boss now because he's so low. And then to skip this guy out, very simple, just jump down the side of the hallway here. Don't get too close to these mobs. And then we get into the minecart area, which is an area that you can go, you know, decently fast in, decently slow in, kind of take your time, hang out in the minecart, or you can make use of the wax candles around here and use that to actually group up packs, large packs, outside of the minecart so that it can continue to move without you. And so you're going to see me do that here. I'm going to immediately get aggro on these mobs, grab a candle, and I'm just going to keep running after, you know, hitting a pile that I couldn't see. And I'm going to grab all these mobs that I can. This is going to be, you know, an okay first pull here. I'm going to group it up relatively close to the minecart here. And basically, every time you get a candle, you get a 30-second buff, which is what allows you to actually do this. What I'm doing now is still, you know, do damage, get aggro, heal yourself, that kind of stuff, and group stuff up. Melee can follow suit, as you can see other melee running around here. And he's actually going to pull more for me, I think. He's going to go tricks me and grab some more stuff. But, you know, healers and range can kind of hang out in the light of the minecart and still hit the pack. And if you see here, the minecart did just go right past us. And so basically how this minecart works is that it has kind of a radius around it where it's like, I'm in combat. And if you're able to skirt around that radius, it'll just keep going. As you can see here, which is, you know, pretty useful in terms of getting through this area quickly. And so I'm just going to be chain pulling here, grabbing more stuff. The rogue is, you know, tricksing stuff to me and almost dying potentially. Basically, this lets us do this entire room in the span of 2 pulls instead of like 3 or 4. So that's quite useful. You're going to see me trying to group up all this stuff, pull to the side. Some things to keep in mind: shuffling horrors will always beeline it to the cart and do their interrupt first. and then they'll leave. So you can see, like, I have aggro on this horror. So once he gets interrupted, he's going to come. I don't have aggro on this guy. I'm going to have to taunt him, but just ranged and whoever can keep an eye on the cart for when these horrors come and interrupt or use a stop on the channel to prevent it from actually going off. And then again, I'm going to just group up this stuff on the side of the minecart. You can kind of see the threat table in action here. The mob on the minecart dies. It gets close to us, says, oh, I'm in combat. So I move a little bit more, pull them away from the minecart. And that allows it to continue moving. Again, just trying to skirt around the side, end up getting it just past at the corner here. And now it's like, okay, I'm good. And then it starts going. And it just lets you get through this area super, super fast. Now, this part of the pull, we're not really interested in necessarily immediately killing here. I just want to make sure the minecart gets out. And then I'm going to also get out. And then we can just fight the remainder of the trash out here where everyone's in the light. It's very easy for everyone to see. You don't need to use the wax anymore. And this just gets you through the minecart area super fast. And again, like I said, in 2 pulls. Part of this is definitely due to the change to the corridor creepers where they're now dispellable, as you can see. Fantastic change, by the way. Love that. And the other thing to keep in mind with those corridor creepers is when stuff dies, you really want to make sure you are immediately moving and potentially using a defensive as well, because they get these stacks here. You see they have a two stacks of Eater of the Dead because they were near 2 nearby corpses. So you want to move them away to try and make sure the stacks drop there from that. And just be careful, especially if you have a large amount of dot stacks. When stuff starts dying, you're going to be in a little bit of danger, so prepare defensives for that. And if you do ever miss anything in the minecart area, it's actually not a big deal, especially if it's just like a few mobs here and there, because you can always make up count at the end of the dungeon. Here, I'm just going to fast forward past this little event. Oh, too far. Basically, this has enough count. I have in my route pulling 3 creepers here, as well as just a bunch of skitterers. But like I said, if you miss count, you can just pull either more skitterers than I pulled, or you can pull a 4th creeper and do like a 2 creeper pull into a 2 creeper pull. That's totally fine as well, just depending on how much count you missed in the minecart area. Just a neat little, or a nice little, you know, breather room, and that you can like actually make up count in case you don't get things perfect. And like I said, it's also a lot easier now that you can actually dispel the corridor creeper dot. It basically just your healer is dispelling you kind of on CD. Dwarf racials are great for this as well as things like, you know, AMS and immunities like Paladin has to actually clear those dot stacks. Basically just dragging around these corridor creepers. As you see stuff dies, I drag the creepers past it, and I'm getting enough skitterers here just to make sure that we have enough count. Notably, I am avoiding the creepers because they have way more health. So none of this stuff is linked. You can just tag skitterers here as much as you want, as much as you need. That sleeping on the corner gives no count, by the way. And this is all we need. So boom, all the skitterers are dead. And then we're going to the last boss, which again is another one I covered in my hardest boss video. Biggest thing is just make sure you kind of have a plan. Who is going to be in charge of getting wax? Who is going to be in charge of moving the candle? Generally in our group, the tank is the one moving the candle, and the person getting wax is either a mobile range DPS or the healer, kind of a combination of the two, depending on what needs to be done. And we try and move in a consistent manner such that like we're always going to basically be moving clockwise with the candle when it gets targeted by Umbral Slash. Make sure you get that out. Boom, so Umbral Slash is going to come out here. I'm going to pick up the candle. I'm going to move clockwise around the boss, drop the candle, and again, kind of be a little bit central here to make it a little bit easier to actually get wax. And then, you know, we have our mage that got some wax. Our holy paladin ran out and got some wax. I think he refilled a second early. They both refilled at the same time, which is what got us into this issue here. But luckily, the boss got stuck in a cast, and I was able to leap out and get some. So be careful. Don't double deposit like we did there. But otherwise, this is another like one of those rinse and repeat fights where it's all about making sure you have those roles set up initially so that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing here. And if you have those assignments, who's moving the candle, who's getting the wax, and whatnot, that's going to make this fight infinitely easier. And then basically, there's not a lot of group damage here outside of the Shadow Blast on individual players, and then the AoE damage on Eternal Darkness. So basically, use personals when you're targeted by Shadow Blast, and then use healing throughput CDs or group defensive CDs for the Eternal Darkness, and that should get you through this boss all right. But there we have it, guys. That is the end of my Keystone Legend series. Remember, if it helped you out, be sure to like and subscribe for more content like it, including advanced dungeon guides for people looking to push for the 0.1% Mythic Plus title, Mythic Raid boss guides, including a cutting-edge guide for Gallywix later on in the season, and much more. As always, thank you to all of my amazing Patreons for helping to make videos like this one possible, and I'll see everyone in the next video.